Thank you, Jennifer. Good afternoon, everyone. You can see we're missing one person, so we'll have to get his insights at some other time. I want to get this off my chest right away. I am from BC, and I am not here to say that everyone else should do what BC is doing, because that is just simple and annoying. And the context is different in every jurisdiction across the country. But what I do want to do in this very brief overview before we go to these fine folks here is just tell you a little bit about the work that we're doing as an example of some tools or approaches that might be useful in other places. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about BC Builds, and then a little bit more about DASH, which stands for Digitally Accelerated Standardized Housing. So BC Builds, and we like to think that maybe Build Canada Homes was riffing on our idea a little bit. We identify low-cost public land for development, and we also fund and finance and accelerate housing. So we find the land, we fund it, we finance it, and then we support the development. And our mandate at BC Builds, which we were given by the provincial government, was to and is to move projects from concept to construction, not in the usual 3 to 5 years or more, but in 12 to 18 months. So we were given a mandate to accelerate from the very beginning, and if you go to our website, which is bcbuildshomes.ca, you can see what I like to think of as the BC Builds rocket ship, and that tells you a little bit how we do that. But what we do in this acceleration process is we think about treating construction start as minimum viable product. So in the tech sector, you want to get to getting your product out so you can make as much money as soon as possible. And we accelerate our projects using a methodology from the tech sector to get to construction as soon as possible. So that's what BC Builds does. We launched in February 2024. We've got 7,000 homes in our pipeline and close to 2,000 already under construction. And as I said, we also finance housing, and there's been a lot of discussion this morning so far about financing, and I can tell you it is possible to finance off-site modular construction because we're doing it. Through BC Builds, we are financing construction. This up here is a building in Prince Rupert. We provided construction financing as well as some equity into the project. And you can see the quote someone said in this Stories article that if we weren't here, it wouldn't have happened. I asked our senior development manager on this file, on this project, how do we do it? And he said, BC Housing has had a lot of experience with modular, but we do exactly as you'd expect. We require bonding, we get the contract right, we get the insurance right. The GC contracts with the manufacturer, we pay a deposit so they can get going, and then we get construction claims from the GC who gets them from the factory. We send our quantity surveyor to the factory, they make sure that the work is happening, and then we pay the construction claims long before anything gets to site. So I just wanted to point that out because it actually is happening. We're doing it. All right, which means it's possible, and happy to share any of our lessons, because not everything has gone right along the way, and happy to share about that. Another point that I want to make here really quickly in terms of Made in Canada industry transformation, you're seeing this building up here again. This is in Prince Rupert, British Columbia. Anyone want to guess where these modules were made? No guesses? Manitoba, how did you know? Is this your company? Winkler. Okay, so Winkler, Manitoba. We're making modules in Winkler, Manitoba, and we're shipping them to Prince Rupert. That's fine, but second point on the other slide here, this is Intelligent City. This is a project we're working on with Intelligent City and Housing Okanagan in Kelowna, and this is a project to come. I toured a site yesterday in Etobicoke. These panels are being shipped from Vancouver to Etobicoke. So, which is fine, right? Everyone's doing a good job on these projects. I'm not saying they're not, but I think we've got to get our some more factories of the right kind in the right place. All right, finally, what I'm most excited to tell you about before we get into the conversation here is DASH. So this stands for Digitally Accelerated Standardized Housing. Our colleague from PwC was talking about AI. This is a platform that relies on AI to optimize design, optimize for prefab, create a digital twin, and then hand buildings over to operators at the end of the day. So it's got all, it plays in all of these spaces, the Dash platform: design, prefabrication, construction, and then move-in, but beyond move-in, operations and asset management. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about this, and then I have an invitation for all of you to participate. So Dash is a digital platform, and it's really about lower cost, faster, more efficient, and more sustainable. So it's a bit different than some of the conversations we've heard earlier, because it relies on standardization of just about everything. So we standardize, working with municipalities, the permitting process, standardize the zoning. I would say that Dash is a made in BC solution that has massive national potential application. We've developed a standardized blueprint for BC Building Code. We could easily do one for the National Building Code. That standardized design goes onto a map with all the zoning information uploaded. The AI agent configures that design for that site: best density, best shadowing, or least shadowing, etc. And then, that would be good enough if it stopped there, and then the second AI agent then optimizes that design for prefabrication with, and this is the part that some of the folks building proprietary systems might not like, with a standardized kit of parts that can be made by, right now we've got 11 to 13 factories in BC that can make these kits of parts, which we like to think of as the 2x4s of the 21st century. So standardized design, optimized for prefab, standardized kits of parts that can be made in any factory. Okay, now, if you're interested, we just launched a request for information on Monday, conveniently timed with this wonderful summit. We're looking to, as is the federal government, we're starting with a request for information so we can get information from all of you to get it right. We want to pre-qualify a list of manufacturers, but also of GCs and CMs who can build these things for BC Housing funded and financed projects for the next few years. So that's an introduction. That was really quick, but now we get to dive in more deeply with folks who are in the field doing some of the similar work. So I'm going to run back over there. All right, so I would like each of you to briefly introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and then while you're doing that, or as part of you doing that, I'd love for you to tell us, what do you see as your role, so your personal role, because it really is about, in some ways, personal motivation, and the role of your organization in moving prefabrication, modularity from the margins to the center of the Canadian construction economy. So who are you, and what's your role and your organization's role in doing that? And let's start with our national colleague down at the end here, Paul.
Okay, thank you very much. So I just want to say at the beginning, thank you for the chance to be here. It's been a lot of fun. I feel like I've met everybody here individually over the summer as we were doing work. So, and it was great to put, to meet people in person. A lot of it was virtual. Absolutely terrific. So I'm Paul Halucha. I'm a Deputy Minister at Housing, Infrastructure, Communities Canada, and I'm a lifelong civil servant. I come out of economic policy domain. So I worked, I worked at the Privy Council office for a long time on economic policy. I worked at Industry Canada when it was called Industry Canada. It's now got a different name for about 17, 18 years. A lot of different sectors: autos, aerospace, space, forestry, steel and aluminum, very different things. And I think what I bring to this file is actually the understanding that the industry and the industry transformation needs to be at the center of this. If you look at the product, look at the productivity numbers. You look at what the growth level's been at the country. You compare us to other jurisdictions. It's very clear that the pathway to that very daunting doubling of housing construction that the minister talked about this morning, that the government has adopted the policy, is very much on your shoulders, on our shoulders, but it has to come through the success of this sector. We're not going to achieve that target unless we advance and we work with you and we keep you at the center of the efforts. So my role is, in terms of leadership of the department, it's been to do the design work obviously with the government, support the launch of the Build Canada Homes. It's to incubate that organization, help it become independent next year. And it's also to kind of take the leadership and make it broader than just the department and the ecosystem players. So we've moved Canada Lands Corporation, who you heard from earlier, is now in Minister Robertson's portfolio. We obviously have CMHC, which has a key role to play. We have the Infrastructure Bank. We do infrastructure programming. We also have other departments that have to play a core role on this. So, and the two that I would give you by names, and I think many of you who had bilats with me today and met with me will have heard me say you need to get to know the industry department as well. So you all recognize me. You need to recognize Phil Jennings and the Deputy Minister of Industry, because that's where a lot of the commercial support is going to be. The housing mission of the Government of Canada is not only this department and this portfolio, it is that broader set. And we've been doing a lot of preparatory work to make sure they're ready for you as you come in with ideas around scale up and getting new technologies. And so that's going to be a really key part of my job, is making sure that those other departments, the Defense Department, which is going to build a lot of housing, understands that they have the same mission as we do, which is to support the sector. So I'll stop now. I should have said at the beginning, I went to the Senate about 2 weeks ago, and the chair of the senator was super frustrated because I spoke for 10 minutes to respond to 30-second questions. So just warning on that one.
All right, thanks. That's a good note.
I'll stop there.
That's a good note for the moderator. Thanks, Paul. That's a great point.
I should have told you that at the beginning.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. That's a great point, that other departments across government are going to be looped in to make this work. It can't just be focused on housing. Sean, nice to meet you.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your role, and also what... Whoa. Oh, no. Did that?
Yeah, that was a window.
It broke. There's too much pressure in the room.
Yeah.
It's a pressure cooker. Jen, should we get someone? Continue? That was really exciting. That was like so we're going to go to Toronto Community Housing, and he's obviously got some amazing things to say. All right, let's carry on. They'll come in and do whatever they need to do they're coming. All right, so Sean, tell us.
Great.
In your
I feel
role,
like that was an ill omen, but but we'll soldier on. I'm Sean Baird. I'm the President and CEO at Toronto Community Housing Corporation. I'm here to represent the need, right? So we are a major operator. We are the biggest operator of affordable housing in the country. We operate 60,000 homes. More than 100,000 people are tenants in Toronto Community Housing all over the city. And we operate in an environment of great need, right? More than 13,000 people experienced homelessness in the city of Toronto. That number doubles or probably triples if you include sort of the broader GTHA. We have welcomed in more than 2,000 people that have experienced street homelessness into living in Toronto Community Housing in the past 4 years. And despite the fact that we are so large and we do so much and we provide so many supports for so many tenants, we're not even coming close to meeting the need, right? So more than 100,000 people live in Toronto housing, and yet another 100,000 people are on the queue, on the waiting list to move into social housing. And the only reason that we're taking people directly in from street homelessness into Toronto housing is because there's nowhere near enough supportive housing out there to accommodate the needs that exist within this city. And that same metric is repeated in every major city across the country, right? So if you look at the big picture metrics, I think the housing minister this morning said we need to more than double our housing starts. Absolutely, that's true. I'm here to tell you we need to more than double the total number of non-market housing within our portfolio as well. Right? And of course, to tag into the purpose of this summit, we need to rely on new construction methods to do that. We need to rely on modular. We need to massively increase the investment in this industry and the capacity to deliver, because we can't wait. Right? We have tremendous need that we need to push forward and build on. We've got the land, we've got the demand, we've got the need. I got zoned, ready, infrastructure ready, social infrastructure ready. We've done all of that, right? It's time now for the equity to come to the table and the construction methodology to come to the table and the partners to be here, so we can launch dozens and dozens of new housing projects within our portfolio.
Great. All right. The next question, and I know we haven't finished the first one here. I'm going to come to Hugh in a moment, but the next question, it's going to be a bit of speed dating. So you might get a chance to say more to the industry about what you need from them and what you think they need from you. But Hugh, first of all, over to you. Tell us who you are, what you do, and what do you see the role of your organization and your role in helping shift us from where modularity, prefabrication's at the side to where it's at the center in this country?
Thanks, Lisa. So my name is Hugh Clark. I'm the Executive Director of the Housing Development Office. We're actually a very new office at the city. We're about 3 months old. Essentially, when I came on in the middle of the summer was when it effectively got started. My goal, or my organization's goal, is to push for the delivery of affordable housing. So, you know, I work with Sean and Vic, who's unfortunately not here, as well as all the members of Sean and Vic's team, to ensure that we deliver affordable housing, because it won't be delivered on its own. There's no economics that make sense for delivering affordable housing without the support of the public sector, and whether that be at the municipal level or at the federal level. I actually think what my personal role is, and Sean mentioned it, I'm the equity from the city side. So I'm helping bring in what we can afford to deliver affordable housing through our agents and our corporations, TCH or Creatio or CREM. So my role is really to produce. I'm not a policy person. I don't care to present myself as a policy person. I'm a production person. I've 3 months in the public sector, but many years in the private sector, and my goal is to get stuff done. I was hired with that direction. We need to deliver now, and that we can't actually wait to come up with well-conceived, well-laid-out plans. We actually need to push quickly. And this is actually very encouraging to see all these people here who are motivated to do just as we're motivated to do.
Great. So Build Canada Homes, we heard from the minister this morning, and also we know this from everything we've read and seen, that they are going to prioritize prefabrication, off-site manufacturing in what they fund and finance. So you've got money. Sean wants your money. Are you going to set any kind of parameters around certain percentage needs to be prefab? So talk about how you're going to deploy this equity to get buildings built on the land that Sean's responsible for.
You know, I think we should. We haven't set that target yet, but I think that we need to, one, be working with Build Canada Homes, because while we have equity, our equity is this size, and Build Canada Homes' equity is that size. And truth be told, we need that, both equity and financing. I'm actually intrigued by the structure of your organization that can do both the equity and financing side, because we always make great efforts to push projects, say, you know, we'll fund this amount, but CMHC, we need you to do, you know, whether through the Affordable Housing Fund or ACLP financing, we need you to provide this much financing and even some forgivable loans. So we were definitely interested in providing Jean equity, and he comes to us every year with the same ask. But to be clear, there's also other equity that's required. There's other funding that's required, because once he gets it up and operational, the funding actually doesn't stop there, right? The only way to make the kind of product that we're talking about actually sustainable is continuous funding, and that's usually at the kind of provincial level, which is a whole other conversation altogether. But I'm more than happy to give Sean whatever it takes to get the industry moving and to produce quickly.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that's a key takeaway maybe for all of us, even this early in the panel, is that government has a role, and BC, Build Canada Homes. Sorry, we are also BCH, BC Housing and Build Canada Homes. We call you BCAH in British Columbia. But anyway, you've sent a really strong message that you're going to be putting funding and financing towards projects that use prefabrication. And so for other equity partners coming in, I think that might be something, I know you're not a policy guy, but maybe something to consider. All right, so we've already established, and Paul, I really like what you said, industry transformation needs to be at the center of all of this. So if we take that to be true, which I think we do because we're all here, sometimes the private sector and private developers in particular get a bit of a bad rap in this country, which I think is really unfortunate, because 95% or more of the rental housing is built, owned, and operated by the private sector. So to you private sector folks here, we need you. We're not going to build as much as you can ever. So this is the speed dating piece of the conversation. So to each of you in your roles and your organization, What do you think, and whoever wants to jump in first, the first part of the question is, what do you think industry needs from you? And obviously the two of you are going to have a bit of a different answer than Paul. What does industry need from you, from public housing and from the Government of Canada? And what do you need from the off-site manufacturing industry? You've got a wealth of manufacturers in the room. What do you need from them? So first part, what do they need from you? Second part, what do you need from them? And whoever wants to start can start.
I'm going to just jump in. You know, there's a bit of a chicken egg thing that happens in this industry because the manufacturers needs orders, and we need a manufacturing industry that can actually deliver. And so I actually think that this is where the public sector needs to step up and say, we will take on the risk of having a nascent industry, of funding a nascent industry, because if we don't, the private sector is not likely to do it as readily. And I have high regard, not just because I was in the private sector 4 months ago, but the private sector is actually pretty good at taking risks. The public sector, it's more of a struggle. I have at least 25 bosses, 26, sometimes even more, that I have to respond to back at City Hall. And the typical response is, well, tell me what risks we have. And unfortunately, because of the age of the industry, some of it isn't known, and some of it can't be quantified, right? Where they can say, okay, well, that's a quantifiable risk that I'm willing to take, and so we need to do it.
Okay, so we need to reverse the risk ratio. Okay, Paul, I know I said I'd let you guys jump in, but that is a really important question for you. And we heard the minister say this morning that Build Canada Homes was going to be a little bit more risk tolerant than CMHC is able to be for various reasons. Talk about risk. How are you going to reverse that risk ratio to make the public sector more risk tolerant and risk savvy even?
Well, in some ways, we've built taking higher risk into the design. Like the whole approach is based on us taking on more risk. So it'll be an investment policy that will come out in the coming weeks, not too distant future, that I think will spell that out in a bit more detail. But I'll take, for example, if you look at the 3 KPIs like we've established for Build Canada Homes, they are maximizing supply and shovel-ready supply. That's number 1. Number 2 is modular and off-site construction usage, and then the third one is affordability and supporting the growth of that part of it, of the industry. And so risk is built into kind of all aspects of that. So there's an intention to take more. We've not set. There'll be a board that will be established, an investment committee that will work on coming to the actual risk ratios. But give you another piece. We have not set a requirement for a rate of return from Build Canada Homes. So they're not playing with they need to earn 6% or 7% or even 4% on this. Goal is to bring private capital in, and the goal is potentially to exit and recycle their capital, but they're not required to earn a rate of return, which enables them, I think, to take a lot more risk than if they had to hit an ROI every time. The 5 properties that are, and I know I told you, this is the speed dating part, and look what I'm doing. You heard from Canada Lands Corp this morning, which is building 6 properties on behalf of Build Canada Homes. Like those are fully capitalized. Like we have the capital is there to do all 6 of those. We're going to try and get private partners in. So effectively, those are de-risked properties to begin with. All of the risk is going to be on Build Canada Homes on those properties. So that's what I would say.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. And before I go to Sean, one more question for you. I know you hear a lot. It's your day job to get information from the folks in the room about what they need from you. But as the Deputy Minister of Housing Infrastructure Canada, what do you need from the off-site manufacturing community? What's going to help you?
I think the point that the colleagues made around getting to know the industry better is a key thing. Like what became clear to me over the summer is we don't know the sector and the industry, individual companies as well as we need to for this venture to be successful, which is the minister mentioned this morning. One of the early steps we're going to have, hopefully in the next 3 or 4 weeks, is going to be a pre-qualification process. We're going to have an industry day. We want to pre-qualify vendors across the country in order to accelerate our ability to do deals. That's going to be hugely important, and we're putting the industry at the center of some of the early initiatives. So the $1 billion, again, that the minister mentioned this morning, the plan is to actually have the companies be at the center of that. Like this, by next year, we will know the firms a lot better. We're going to try and do, if I can do all of $1 billion, if we can do a full billion through modular, we're going to do that. That's our starting point. I think the thing I heard most often from companies over the summer in the sector was go modular by default. So we'll see if the investment policy says that. But if we're not modular by default, we're going to be like modular minus 5% or so, right? Certain parts of the country where you can't do it fully modular now. So, example, we announced an agreement with Nunavut as part of the launch day. Like, you have. In Nunavut, there's actually it's impossible for them to do 100% modular. It would mean that their local Indigenous working population would not be part of that construction solution. It can't be done. So we landed on a third for that one, but we will be pushing as high as we can. And I think that the ability to have modular and offsite construction as part of what the proposals that come forward will be a huge differentiator. And every time you hear the Prime Minister talk about Build Canada Homes, which is very, very often, right? Like you heard him last night, this is a core part of his messaging around building, and he always comes back to the importance of modular. And obviously the launch day spoke to that in terms of the visuals and who was present at that event as well.
Great, yeah, thank you. That's a really interesting insight. I think there's putting industry at the center and paying attention to how they respond. And I think there was a really clear message sent this morning, keep that RFQ as simple as possible. And that's for us at BC Builds and BC Housing, we're doing the RFI first so we can hear from industry, what do you need? What should we be asking for in this RFQ? So I think, yeah, putting industry at the center is really important. Sean, let's go to you on this question. What do you think the offsite housing industry needs from community housing, Toronto community housing? And what do you need from the industry?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's important to remember that we've got two distinct but sort of self-reinforcing goals here, right? So I want to get as much housing built as possible. That's what I want to get done. And we've got really strong goals to meet that. I think the additional investment and building up and scaling up of the overall modular industry is alongside that, and we'll reinforce that, right? I strongly believe in my heart of hearts that if we build and scale up this industry, it's going to let us build more housing faster and cheaper. However, that hasn't happened yet, right? Like, so our experiences aren't matching what we know to kind of be the reality of what should happen. And my belief is that that's because we haven't scaled up enough yet, right? The capacity isn't quite there yet to be able to fully meet our needs, right? Simple example, I need to build 40-story towers, right? Like, who's going to help me do that, right? We're not there. I know we're not there. That's okay, right? But I know that others can do that. It's happening in other parts of the world, right? So we need to be putting in the investment and the education and the support all the way up and down the system, right? The financing, the zoning approvals, the trades, all of that. Like, those things don't fully integrate with completely modular delivered construction approach here in Canada yet, right? So I am all in for getting us there, but I got to build housing at the same time, right? So I've got to keep focused on both of those goals as we go forward. I think what I can help with, what we collectively can help with is, well, this is a rough panel.
Seriously. Really, what broke now? What did we break now?
I know. Like, we can help keep the pipeline full, right? There is no end to the sites, the demand, the opportunities for builds that we have. And it's not just TCHC, it's all of the other non-market providers that operate in Toronto and across Ontario and across Canada, right? There are tremendous opportunities to do that. And on sites that don't need new infrastructure, don't need new zoning, right? We're ready to rock and roll, ready to rumble. That's what the minister said this morning, right? So we can help keep the pipeline full, happy to make those kind of commitments. I need the industry to scale up fast and bring forward the new technology that's necessary to meet really, really high volumes. I mean, look, we talk about Dunhouse a lot, and it's amazing. If you haven't seen it, you should go see it. It's wonderful. We had 100 of those, and we had 100 of them last year, right?
In every city in the country.
Sure, but I'm focused on Toronto first.
I know, but this is a national conference and a national panel.
100% that's right?
And
so the scale is massive in terms of the need, and we got to get there fast.
Yeah, Hugh, jump in, and then I've got
I was going to say
question.
that we also needed to cost half what it costs at Dunhouse. Like, that is our challenge. So, like, if we have a goal to start 65,000 rent-controlled homes by 2030. I have a limited budget, and Sean gets some and Vic gets some, and they say, you can either produce twice as much through this method, or because the industry's not there yet, half as much, or I doubled what I was saying there. But you basically need an industry now because the demand is so high to reducing at scale and at the same cost as our traditional methods. Otherwise, we have to justify why we're investing in this industry. And that's the hard conversation that we have to have at all the levels of government and say, it's worth it. It may not be worth it for this year's budget or next year's budget, but 2028, 2029, 2030, that is when the payoff is going to happen, because all of a sudden we have a train that's going that is throwing units off at the $400,000 to $500,000 a unit. No matter the scale, no matter the size, no matter the configuration, we can deliver.
So this really leads to a question that I hadn't thought of until we're having this conversation, which is the whole point of having these conversations, which is who pays for what I like to think of as the innovation increment. And I'll just give you a couple of examples to illustrate what I mean by that. So we're working that mass timber building that I showed you that we're working on in Kelowna with Housing Okanagan and Intelligent City. It's about 5% more than concrete because it's the third or fourth of these, not the 70th. So who pays for that? And then another example, the DASH initiative that I showed you, it is, as I said, a prototype. We are going to be doing 5 DASH demonstration projects in various regions of British Columbia. It's gonna cost more because we're gonna ask the architect to sit alongside us every step of the way and give us their lessons learned. It's gonna require training of our staff in BIM because DASH relies on building information modeling. So to the three of you, and maybe to all of you out there, to think about who pays for this innovation increment. Is it the private sector? Is it the public sector? Is it a split? Paul, let's go to you first on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is not a question unique to this sector, right? Every sector that innovates has this challenge, and it's always, in my experience, a mixture of private and public money that comes into it. I mean, our universities are funded, publicly funded. They do work on innovation. We have industry departments that support key companies, strategic technology development. That definitely needs to happen. I actually think this sector, this is not the aerospace sector. It's not to say there's not a lot of R&D, some R&D that needs to happen here. But certainly the companies that I have met with, they're not looking for us to help them go from TRL 3 to 4 or get out of the lab. They're looking for help us with our order book. That was the message we heard all summer, was consistent demand and help us on that side. And that was actually a pretty big reorientation that we did in Build Canada Homes over the summer. We do have RDAs, regional development agencies. They have money. We have an advanced manufacturing sector, and as I mentioned, everyone needs to get to know the industry department here, because this is a strategic sector. I think that's what the government has said very clearly, that we need this sector to be supported on the technology side, but also on the delivery side.
Great insight. Yeah, every industry has to innovate, and in this case, it sounds like the technology's there. It's just a question of, or not just a question of scale, I don't want to oversimplify, but having that order book is key.
Well, the underutilized capacity in the sector is, right, it's huge. Like, we can, without a single new piece of equipment being bought, we can probably triple the market share that exists right now, if not more. So I think that's what we have to absorb up, and then I bet you a lot of the entrepreneurs, innovators in the room will have access to capital that at a price that they don't right now. So I think that's the solution. That's the kind of direction that we need to follow.
To both of you working in Toronto, and again thinking it's a similar story in Vancouver and Calgary and Edmonton and Halifax. You're building housing, you're working for the public sector. Sean, you go to your board and you say, there are these 5 projects, they're going to cost a bit more because we're trying something new. How do you approach that conversation, and what does your board say? And I guess the same question to Hugh.
Yeah. I think Hugh hit it really well on the last answer, right? You got to take a long-term view of it, right? You got to take a business case that's going to look at the next 6, 7, 8, 10 years of production, because that's the cycles we build on anyway, right? In terms of the home building industry, right? And I think the other thing is you have to take a portfolio view to it, right? So I absolutely have individual projects that aren't going to pencil today, 100%. Everybody's got below-the-line projects right now, right? But if I take a portfolio view and I take a factor on it that's going to be, once we get to the 70th project, as you say, that it's going to bring it down by this much, and we can put some reasonable numbers behind that, that just helps you start to quantify the risk, right? And helps you start to quantify how much is that investment increment that you talked about, right? And are we willing to take some of that on so that we can get the benefits of that down the road in 4, 5, 6 years? Of course we are, right? But probably not 100% of it, right? It's got to be some shared risk there and some shared value creation there.
Yeah. Hugh, what are your thoughts?
Well, I just say, like, who built the railroads, right? Like, that, it was actually federally funded. All the railroads across North America were federally funded, right? Like, they were given special opportunities through the federal government, and I'm actually, Paul, I'm not saying that the federal government, I'm saying that the public sector funded for those social infrastructure. Housing is a social infrastructure. So we actually do need to fund it. Our goal is to be very selective in how we fund it, so we're not throwing good money away, but being very strategic in how we're investing, because it is a social infrastructure. If you have housing, if you have transportation, if you have sewers that lead to all these places, your economic engine goes. And we always have to think about it in those terms. I was at a budget meeting last night where we were talking about this exact thing, about needing to make these infrastructural investments, because it's the only thing that's going to lead to the economic engine that is Toronto and Vancouver
and Canada
and the whole nation,
the rest of the country,
right, that we're all very proud of, to get up to full speed. So Sean's entirely right, though. Like, it's not all in, all at once. It's selective through various means to build that. And it's how we coordinate ourselves so our dollars are stacking properly to build the industry. And it is all in that coordination, I think, we'll be able to build the railroad of housing.
Paul, jump in, Paul.
I'm just thinking, there's another way to answer your question, which is to think about export and international market opportunities, right? That often is the differentiator. Where does the state get involved in supporting innovation? It's where it believes that it's you've got an export opportunity, and I think a lot of our companies do have that kind of potential. And I won't name names, but there's a few that are obviously like world leaders or in that stage. And so if you can actually support them and you capture international markets in addition to helping them build the homes and achieve the KPIs of the three of us on this panel, and in addition to contribute to what the Prime Minister talked about yesterday, which is the fact that we need to grow our GDP, grow our revenue potential as a country, then I think that's an extraordinarily compelling case. And it's another reason why the industry department needs to get to know some of the firms around this table.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the challenges in Canada generally is that we are underperforming. The Prime Minister talks about this as well. We're underperforming in terms of our capacity for productivity. So I think your point about let's use this housing crisis, let's use all of these manufacturers and their innovators in the room to solve our productivity problem and our housing problem at the same time. Yeah, I think that's very wise.
But then you got to go.
Someone wants to clap for that. All right.
But then you got to go up the supply chain too, right? So it can't just be the last stage, right? You got to be doing everything in production toward it as well, right?
Absolutely.
Which I think the next panel is going to talk about.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about making construction faster with prefabrication, modularity. From each of your perspectives, what are some other, and I talked a little bit about this when I was talking about Dash, we can build things as fast as we want, but if we can't permit them and we can't zone them. So what do you see from your perspectives? What else needs to be standardized or kind of pre-approved in order to get to faster construction? So whoever wants to jump in first.
Well, I think the city has tried to take that approach. We need to actually act smarter in the way that we're doing things. That we can't follow our tried, tested, and true method of the same kind of process for everything. We're not there yet, right? Like I think that the buildings department is talking about how they can use AI for people submitting things, do a quick review before you even bother submitting it. And that's an easy tool to say, hey, you've missed a few things, so don't waste the 2 weeks of review. And we all know it takes a little more than 2 weeks to get a building permit. But don't submit it until you make these corrections, because it'll be faster. So I think we do need to think about every single step, and then we as the public sector need to say, we're going to make land available for this to be worked out, and we're gonna pull some people, the smartest and best people in our group, who are responsible for the regulatory side of it, and we're going to tell them, you got to get this done. Like, this is a project that we're behind, and there's some people here actually from that team. You're going to shepherd it through the labyrinth that is the regulation.
But why don't you get rid of the labyrinth? Can you change the labyrinth?
Well, but there is regulatory rules that we have to follow. Like, we have to make
Someone
sure...
from Calgary just yelled out yes, and she's on the next panel, so let's ask her. Let's ask her how on the next panel. Go ahead.
For sure, but there are certain things we have to make sure. We have to make sure that there's enough water to serve the site, right? Like, there's certain things that are just fundamental that you have to check in our review. But there's a lot of other shit, there's a lot of other stuff.
You're going to break another window,
And this is where,
careful.
this is the private sector side of me, where the city's opining on and wasting time when it really shouldn't. Like, it's not our business to opine on certain things, but people feel like they're responsible for it because that's their title, right? Yeah. And we need to say, actually, for this, and whether we have special projects or not special projects is a whole other conversation. But where the city says we want to do this project, we need to streamline and not add layers of approvals or any of those things to get to hold the projects up.
So thank you. Sean, from your point of view, what other things need to be accelerated? And if you can be as practical or specific as possible beyond just accelerating construction.
Yeah, I mean, I'd go upstream and downstream both, right? So on the upstream side, yes, the zoning approvals, the permit, all of that, of course. And I think the City of Toronto is doing a great job of starting to say, we're not independent pieces that all look at things independently and give sometimes conflicting opinions about things. Yeah. We're going to try and create one stream, right, where the city takes responsibility for shepherding things through. And that's been a huge improvement for us. I can tell you it's like scale improvement in terms of the time it takes to get through things and the ability to cut through some of the silliness that sometimes comes when different departments think different things, right? Because the reality is, historically, those things just fell into a black hole, right? And now there's somebody who's responsible for actually making sure that stuff gets shepherded through. So that's wonderful, and I think that's working really well. Upstream, I'd also point to financing, right? Like we've got to make sure that those
financing takes too long.
Absolutely, it takes too long, yes. And that's where I would say taking a portfolio approach to things, standardizing what we can do, what we can get access to and how quickly, those things would help us tremendously. And then downstream, it's not going to help me if we manufacture all of this and then it sits in a parking lot somewhere either, right? Yeah. I need the trades, I need everyone ready, the construction management, everybody ready to hit the ground and deliver on that. And I feel, again, that our industry is not quite there yet, right? We can do some pilot projects, we can do some example projects, that's wonderful, but are we at the point where we can start rolling these out dozens and dozens at a time all over the city? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no,
so
I think absolutely. UBC is doing some interesting research, or proposing to do some interesting research on AI optimization of the supply chain. So the modules or the panels or whatever are showing up just in time, on site. Because that's one of the challenges, especially with factories being far from the site. Yeah. You can lose significant time if you're sitting around waiting for the panels to show up.
Yeah. And I can't stage 1,000 panels either.
What's that?
I can't stage 1,000 panels,
Yeah, no, exactly. Paul, from your point of view, what other acceleration opportunities do you see beyond accelerating construction?
I think we almost need to accelerate everything. Like, I think it's a target.
Accelerate it. Can we get T-shirts? Accelerate everything.
Accelerate everything. You can. Yeah, I'll take the IP payments. No, I think it's a target-rich environment. Like, there's so many problems and challenges, and when people say this is a complex housing system, and I mean, when you sit with a developer and they tell you what their story was and what they've had to go through to get through to be building, it's kind of awe-inspiring that anybody starts it at all anymore.
That's true.
And so so there's a whole set of changes we need to make on it. But I think it needs to come down to us acting like we're in a crisis, which we tried to do a lot when we were doing the design on Build Canada Homes over the summer, right? I kept hearing it's going to take 18 months before we're doing anything on this. Well, I think we started in June and we announced in mid-September. It's capitalized heading in, this budget will, if it passes, there will be $800 million accrual dollars available to it till April 1st, and then there'll be another installment. And so we've, I think acting like we're in a crisis is key. And then the other thing, I think where the capital gets deployed by Build Canada Homes should be like an indication of where the country is ready, where the jurisdictions, everybody is ready to be in partnership. If there are cities that are like throwing up obstacles and then I think that we should just not put our capital there. Honestly, I think, and then we should call out the problems and the challenges that we're seeing, whatever the jurisdiction is, and so that should be part of what we're trying to accomplish here, because we do need the system to change, and it's not going to change if we don't acknowledge where we have problems. And I would say that's at the federal level, provincial, and municipal. There's lots of as I said, we have to accelerate everything, so there's a lot to happen at all three levels there. The minister talked about federal lands. It takes us 9 years to get land through our surplus process. That is like 8.5 years too long, right? Or at least 8 years too long. And so we've been, we are focused on trying to speed that up because we're, these first 6 properties hopefully will all be under construction in 2026. No pressure, Dina, if Dina's still in the room, and then we need the next, we need the next set to be under conversation later this year, and and those will come federally, but they'll also come from the other jurisdictions as well that we want to partner with.
Yeah, I think that's a really good insight about going to the jurisdictions, the municipalities and provinces where the yeses are, where the energy is. When we started BC Builds, I did a bit of a roadshow around the province, and I went to various, and our BC Builds land is mostly municipal. Municipalities are putting their land in, and then we're partnering with them to find developers, or they start their own housing corporations. Anyways, I was presenting at one council, which I will not name, and I made my presentation, and we don't want this, we're not interested, we don't want BC Builds. Okay, no problem. Thank you for that very clear signal. And we're going to go to a municipality down the road that is interested. And we've had tremendous response from municipalities. So I think that's at a higher level, at a national level, going where the energy is going to deploy that capital really quickly. All right, we've got 2 minutes and 11 seconds left. I'm not going to get to all my questions, but what do you want to say to these fine folks here as a last thought to leave them with before we, we're going to get hats, I think, before we get off the stage. We'll just go down. Paul, Sean, Hugh.
I just want to say thank you for the tremendous support that we've gotten from the sector over the summer, and really looking forward to capitalizing on that and keeping you guys, everyone in the room, as partners as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say that I want to keep moving together, not quite in lockstep, but at least, incrementally at the same time, right? So as the funding becomes available, as the sites become available, as the capacity grows, we need to move together. We can't have a situation where, we're all municipalities, all provinces are competing with each other and bidding everything up tremendously, because that's not going to be helpful to us either, right? So it's got to be somewhat organized and allocated.
Right, Hugh?
Come to us with ideas. We're open for ideas. We want to work with you guys. We are a city that does want it to happen, Paul.
Oh, I know that. I know
Just
that.
to be clear, we want to say yes.
Don't tell the mayor anything else.
No, but do come to us. We want to encourage innovation, and we will put the city lands at stake in order to see it to be achieved.
Great. So key takeaways: accelerate everything and close the gaps. Great. Please give these wonderful gentlemen a round of applause. Thank you.